And joining us now, I'm honored to say, is former Harris County, Texas prosecutor and judge, who, of course, now is a congressman. And he is Congressman Ted Poe of Texas. Hello, Congressman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Well, thanks for taking the time. Boy, this is a very frightening case by any standards, and I know that it certainly has the district down there on a high alert and law enforcement on high alert. But you certainly were no stranger to threats as you prosecuted cases and judged cases, and you have a theory, as a lot of people do, as to who might be behind these murders.
That's right. I prosecuted 8 years, judged 22, and you meet the worst people in the world. They end up at the courthouse. This case is a little different in that it was, to me, it seems like District Attorney McClellan and his Assistant District Attorney Mark Hasse, were investigating somebody, probably a criminal gang of some type. Might have been the Aryan Brotherhood, might have been a drug cartel. But I think it was some criminal enterprise they were investigating. And to intimidate and stop the investigation, my theory is that's why Hasse was first murdered, and then 2 months later, the DA and his wife were murdered to head off the investigation, also to intimidate others from doing the investigation. This type of assassinations are very rare in the United States. 13 prosecutors have been murdered over the last 30 years. You can look at that number any way you want to, but it's not a great number. These are the type of things that happen in other countries. A good example is Mexico.
I was just, I hate to interrupt, but as I was driving in and hearing the latest story on this, right away I thought of, my God, this little situation is a mini Mexico here.
That's exactly what the drug cartels do in Mexico. They get a police chief, they get a judge that's investigating them, and they assassinate them. Mexico does not really follow up on going after those cartels, and that's how they're able to intimidate and get away with the criminal enterprise. In the United States, it's a little different because I do believe the drug cartels know that we will, and in this case, we're going to find out who did it, and we're going to hold them accountable.
Well, the Aryan...
It does seem like something that happens in other countries, not us.
Right. No, the Congressman, the Aryan Brotherhood, there was an indictment handed down, a year or so ago, or a little more than a year, which, from what I understand, really put a cringe in their routine and hampered their organization. And many say that, or speculate that this could be payback for that. And of course, after the assassination of Assistant DA Mark Hasse, McClellan vowed, to get the guy who did it, and then of course he was victimized himself. So, do you believe that indictment had anything to do with this? Were these two gentlemen involved with that indictment?
They had. My understanding is the district attorney's office in Kaufman County had been investigating the Aryan Brotherhood. They have some dealings, as the DA said, in the county, and Aryan Brotherhood is a prison gang, and they are a bunch of criminals who engage in criminal enterprise. So it could have been, it looks like that would be one of the suspects or organizations that the Texas Rangers are going to investigate first, I would think. But yeah, it's an organized group of some kind that was involved in this. I don't think it was a personal thing in the sense that it was one person. I think it was several people were involved in these assassinations.
Now, you knew, I believe, Mike McClellan because of your time in law enforcement down in Texas. So what kind of man was he?
He was he's a law and order guy. 23 years in the military, Operation Desert Storm. Like being a district attorney, he came from the other side. He was a criminal defense lawyer, so he saw the criminal cases from both sides. But he's a good guy. I liked him. But he was determined to solve the murder of one of his associates, and I think everybody knew that. And that was maybe part of the reason that he was targeted in these cases.
And Congressman, we're talking to Congressman Ted Poe here on the Steve Malzberg Show. I understand phone records from 2 mobile numbers were being examined yesterday, and this investigation, I mean, it's going to proceed, I guess, very, very methodically. And this has to be top priority, I would think, not only certainly as a local issue, but FBI and every law enforcement agency in the country must be involved in this in some way, right?
The state of Texas will take the lead, and then the county, Kaufman County, has asked other federal agencies to be involved. But yes, it's going to be a multi-level investigation, state, local, and federal law enforcement officers, because it's more than just a good guy being assassinated. This is an attack on really the law, the rule of law in this country. So it's a tremendously big issue. Law enforcement, I think, will eventually find the culprits that were involved.
Yeah, no, and as a former judge, like I said, how frequent were your threats? And I guess you take every threat seriously, correct?
Yes, you do take them seriously. And as a prosecutor, as a judge, I was threatened several times. Thanks to good law enforcement here in Houston, none of those threats were able to be carried out, and others not, weren't overt threats, but any of those threats that were going to take place never occurred, in the sense that they weren't able to fulfill their goal, because of good law enforcement. And law enforcement usually is the first one who knows about threats against public officials.
Let me ask you one more. I mean, it seems to me there are times when a president of the United States will issue a statement or comment on a police shooting, not as often as I would like to see it. I think every police officer deserves some kind of acknowledgement from any president. And to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't occurred here. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But because of the magnitude, because it is kind of what happens south of the border and in other lesser countries, let's say, or countries that don't have the rule of law in as high regard and as in control as we do here, do you think it would be appropriate for the President of the United States to say this won't be tolerated, or to come out and say something about these 2 assassinations?
I certainly do. It'd be very appropriate for the chief law enforcement, really officer of the country, the commander-in-chief, to make a public statement about this, because it is an attack on, the rule of law in this country. It happened in a little rural area in Texas, and I think the whole country is concerned, and rightfully so. The president makes a comment about it.
Okay. Listen, Congressman, thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Congressman Ted Poe.